Hello.
Hey,
So we're doing another shooting the shit.
bonus for you guys. This is unexpected, maybe.
Yeah, it kind of was an unexpected thing for us too. We looked at our schedule and we're like, oh fuck, let's do something else.
Yeah, basically we're gonna come up on some travel issues and things like that. So we're trying to build up a little stock of stuff for you guys.
Yep, and since these episodes are more time sensitive, it makes it sound like it's very important. But you don't want to hear current events from 3 weeks ago, so we moved this one up on our schedule.
Yeah, just for you guys.
Yeah,
We're nice.
We're super nice. Hold on. I was opening something on my phone and got distracted by a cute cat picture, which is very on brand.
Par for course.
So we're going to start with something kind of fun today. I have labeled this in my notes as shit captain. That is my role today.
Captain of the shit. So you give all your orders from the poop deck, right?
Oh my God, leave the show. I'm going to find a replacement. No, if anyone would leave it would be me. I'm pretty replaceable. Okay, so the first thing on our list is actually a listener shout out because, I don't know, I just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah.
I got a DM from Mark who wants to shout out his boyfriend, Christoph, who loves our podcast and listens to it all the time. And he's become much more left-wing as a result. This is cute, to the point where he now lectures me about Marxist stuff that I already agree with. That's goals.
Awesome.
Lovely. So yeah, just asked for a shout out and I thought that was great. So yes.
Hell yeah.
Agreed.
Comrade, solidarity.
Yeah, if you aren't pestering your significant other about Marxism, you're not doing it right.
And like, they don't have to capitulate day one, you know?
You can wear them down.
Yeah. And even if you want, you want to let them out of the room thinking, I'm still not a Marxist, or I'm still not a left wing, I'm not anarchist, whatever. That's fine. They can go on thinking that. But you want to gradually wear them down to where even though they still think they're the other thing, they really actually are way further left than they thought. To where one day, eventually they'll wake up and just be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm a socialist. But you won't get there just overnight, getting people to just drop their previous labels.
Yeah, just make it so like they'll say something that's accidentally super Marxist and like they don't know it.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot. I had a second opener, which is I had to drive to the airport this morning, drop off Kyle, and I saw a fantastic set of bumper stickers. One of my favorite hobbies in Texas is reading bumper stickers on the back of extremely large trucks.
Yeah, they're like just on their literal bumper there, but they're at eye level because it's just
so huge.
such a rig that they're driving.
So the first one was end fluoridization, not like the state of Florida, like we're all turning into Florida.
Oh, that's what I was.
This person is against fluoride.
Oh, all right. Both of them work, but they come from maybe opposite ends of the spectrum.
Just end Florida. We're over it.
Quit making everyone into Florida. Yeah, but fluoride. Wow. All right.
Against fluoride. There was also a link to a something Clean Water Dallas website that I did not have the guts to go to. The second bumper sticker was, I gotta describe this because it's quite the graphic design feat. It said COVID-19 and then in faded out letters was 84.
Oh.
Yeah, and underneath the 84 was an eye.
Oh, like an all-seeing eye sort of thing?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I can't remember what the second line says. I should have written it down. But yeah, that was impressive.
This is pretty excellent. So,
it was some numbers. It was like 2 something. I don't remember what the other number was. It was like 2-2-8 or something.
Huh. That's weird. I don't know what that one means.
I didn't know the significant. Yeah, maybe like the Reddit people know or something. The 4chan people.
Yeah, it could be. It's the modern day version of like 1488 or something. I don't know.
It could be. It could be something real bad.
It is interesting. The fluoride thing is actually an old. I mean, that does go back to like the 50s and stuff. Conservatives basically saying it's sort of like a communist plot, or, the Soviets or something are trying to secretly I mean, that was Dr. Strangelove, right? They're trying to get our precious bodily fluids. Basically, I don't know. That's weird shit.
Yeah, it was delightful. Went down real smooth.
It is weird, though, how the right wing is seemingly like these sort of like has these health fanatic type things of like of those two issues, obviously, and vaccines. They've become very like anti big pharma, but in a stupid way. Like it's kind of it's it's good to be, I guess, anti big pharma because they do a lot of bad shit. But like, I don't know, in a dumb way of like just generally being dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say they've kind of co-opted the eat meat get buff narrative. We gotta take that back from them.
Yeah, because don't they? Well, I don't know. I've only heard about this in certain circles. I haven't really encountered it personally. But like the seed oil people are saying, don't be about seed oil. Like, don't consume seed oils. It's really bad for you.
For some reason, people, any of that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's only an online thing, but people frame it as sort of reactionary in a way. And I don't know how you combine those two, but I'm sure there's a way to do it because everything seems to be able to have a political bend.
I mean, yeah, the whole kind of new age health twist got super right wing like pretty fast. Like it used to be a very like liberal thing to be like, oh, I don't trust big pharma and right. I don't like, I'm trying to eat clean or whatever it is.
Or be a little bit alternative in that regard.
Like, a little woo woo. Like that used to mean like, okay, you're probably in like a hippie or hippie adjacent politically. Yeah. And now it's like, ooh, you could be like straight up crazy. Like I have no idea.
Maybe it's an aspect of individualism or something is why it's so right wing. Is that because, in the earlier versions that we were used to, right, those sort of hippie liberal sort of ideas were mostly like a lifestyle thing of like, oh, I'm my own person. I dropped out of the system, man, and there was that element of like, not so much caring about like the group struggle. That was the old left. The new left would be like, find it within yourself, self-actualization, getting away, being off the grid. And that's almost what the right-wing thing is now.
It's like freedom.
Right. The freedom of like protecting you or your family. And like, that's all that you're focused on, the well-being of that against the rest of the world, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I do find it fascinating as like, it's not really a political litmus test. I find it interesting, like people's approach to doctors. Like our mother thinks doctors are magic, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I have this sort of, that's my base reaction to it. And I know that I do it and I sort of criticize myself a little bit for it, but it's my normal reaction. I kind of consider maybe my peasant mindset of it is that I go in, I'm like, you're way smarter than me at this. Yeah. You know what you're talking about. I don't. Tell me what I need to do. You got the lab coat,
I mean, and like, I am not like anti-science by any means, but I also like recognize ways in which like doctors are fucking human beings and like they can fuck up. And I also like know my body pretty well. So like, like an example of this, like I had a cold and she's like, you should go to the doctor. I'm like, I know how to take care of a cold. Like it's going to be fine. Like I don't need that. Whereas some people are like hardcore the other way. Like my mother-in-law is like, oh, I never go to the doctor. I hate going to the doctor. And it's because she's like, I don't trust big pharma. But she'll go to like a chiropractor. And I'm like, well, that's like also kind of sus. And she's like, well, so is big pharma. I'm like, well, I don't know if that's like the right substitution to make, but I don't know. It's very interesting, I find.
The thing with chiropractic at least is that most modern day practitioners scoff at its origins and like the whole I learned this from a ghost thing background of it.
But like that's one of those things, and like it's one of those things that makes me feel like a crazy person because I'm like, I don't know what the truth is about it. Like I don't want to go deep diving into scientific papers to find out particularly, but like I genuinely don't know. Like, is it safe? Is it bad? I don't fucking know.
I guess I don't either. From the little bit that I've read about it, it does seem like it's sort of it seems like the most generous explanation of some of it is like, this very rarely hurts people, which to me doesn't seem like something you need to introduce into the medical system. Yeah. It's just
it won't kill you.
This does not often really hurt people.
Like, not often, too. What a great disclaimer.
Right, it's like, well, what if we don't do it? Like the whole like manual, whatever they call it.
The adjustments.
Adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me feel like a car. They should go in there and tune me up. But
God, I wish.
On the other hand, a lot of people say they get relief from it. And then some people kind of counter that and they're like, no, that's just placebo. I guess we're not qualified. We're playing.
Definitely not qualified.
Speculation here.
It's a medical guessing game.
Yeah. But I do find that approach to doctors, like you said, is an interesting, it's just personal foibles or, people's preferences.
I think so. I think a lot of it is like trust and like how you personally been treated by the medical system. Like, I don't know, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And there's, social aspects to that too, of different groups, not being as trustworthy in the medical field or what have you, or also access, like just not having access.
Dude, it's a pain in the fucking ass. Like, yeah, no way. Okay. All right. So next we have a listener question, which I normally wouldn't throw in Shootin' the Shit, but I thought it was a good discussion point instead of just like I don't know. It's not a researchable one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is from Leah or Lee, who sent this to us on Twitter. And she said, I've been listening to your show and Rev Left and Deprogram and came across a few discussions on dialectical materialism. In regards to spirituality, it seems that dialectical materialism is atheistic and incompatible with a metaphysical or spiritual view. Is there a way to reconcile this? One, do you think that's true? I mean, I haven't read like the theory of that, I guess, specifically, but I can see maybe where that conclusion would be drawn.
I would say that, so dialectical materialism, it's materialist. So
it can't really be spiritualist, can it?
Right. So, well, it does run counter to a notion that in typical Christianity anyway, or is this more broad than that? Is this just in general spirituality? Or
let me see, because she sent like a follow-up. No, it doesn't have anything specifically about it.
So any religion. Yeah.
So like another question she sent was like, do you have to be an atheist to be a communist? I don't think so personally, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, everything's about a matter of degrees in terms of, there are communists who would say yes. Who would say to check all the boxes that I check to be a communist, you have to, But then there's Christian communists. There's all kinds of people of faith that are also communists, and they would say you don't have to. There's nothing that conflicts.
But it sounds like her question is like, does the adhering to dialectics mean you have to reject all like metaphysical aspects?
Not dialectics in general, no, because that's just, there are two opposing things. They have a relationship. But if you're talking about like real, diamat, you're...
Oh, is that how you shorten it?
Yeah, that's the...
Diamat.
Yeah, that was from Marxism-Leninism, like when they were... the Russians, they always like to shorten up.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That sounds like a futuristic business.
That doesn't sound as nefarious though as like other. It doesn't sound like a nefarious corporation or like some sort of bad group. Diamat.
No, it sounds like that's where you go to get your like robot assistant tuned up or something.
Yeah.
Like I'm going down the Diamat to get some new parts.
Okay, but if you're looking at that and adhering to that, so it says everything in our world comes from everything's matter and. Or originates in a scientific way. Everything comes from something else, and it most crucially is not created by ideas, which every faith approaches this differently, but most have some sort of an origin myth or origin story, origin article of faith, what have you. I guess what I'm most familiar with in the Christian sense is that the, omnipotent everything God,
he made the stuff,
speaks into being everything, which is very idealist. This is just, he kind of comes up with it. It's the word made incarnate. And that's like exactly, that is what Marx famously flipped on its head when he went to materialism. So it's like the opposite of that in that way. I guess my perspective on this is that people's faiths can really very much focus on that stuff, of like, where does everything come from, the cosmology of everything, the big picture zoom out, what happens when you die, and theology things. But I think that for a lot of people, their faith is more focused on what do you do in the world.
Yeah, more focused on the moral guidelines.
Yeah, so from, at least this is my approach, so I'm biased toward it perhaps, but I don't pay so much attention to what I would consider the more weird,
the more creation myth kind of thing. Like,
well, sure, but the more supernatural element to it. That's, I guess, what I mean. It's like,
you're like, it doesn't super matter if like Moses turned his staff into a snake. Like, that'd be pretty sick, but like, it's cool if he didn't.
Yeah, or, obviously with the creation stuff, all that, the more unprovable stuff, I'm like, oh, okay.
Cool story.
It's not what's central to me as much as like doing the right thing for people and trying to like change things here and make things better and look out for people and be a good person. I think a lot of religious people who are left wing, that may be more of what they focus on too, because that's easier to reconcile. It may be that it's like kind of, you can't reconcile them if you're being a strict adherent to either one. But if you're like most people and you just kind of wishy-wash a little bit in between, then it's fine.
Yeah, because in our couple of episodes that have looked at religious movements within like Marxist-Leninist kind of viewpoints, whether it's Christian socialism or we touched a little bit on Islamic socialism, like I don't recall those having any like, well, you gotta be religious to be here, like it was more like, hey, we're using this as a backdrop or a stepping stone to explain our ideas.
Yeah, so you're saying it's not like
not exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's more of a way to appeal to people in those cultures.
I think so. Yeah. And it's a way to bring in people that are part of that. And, if you're really walking the walk and like trying to be, a good person or whatever, like I think that is more the crux of it. Like you were saying, like, yeah, to some people, like that is the essence of Christianity, is like helping other people and blah, blah, blah. And so to them, they're like, the next logical step is to be a socialist.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say, to root it back in the question, strictly adhering to dialectical materialism would probably make it hard for you cognitive dissonance wise to like become a priest or something, to become someone who has to like toe every theological orthodoxy of a faith. And if you're strict dialectical, you're probably not going to be able to combine those two.
Probably not.
There's no reason, I don't think, why. Because you can still be materialist and say, okay, there is a material explanation for why there are religions. They come out of, they're socially created, they're, passed down among cultures and everything. And Marx did this when he talks about it being the opiate of the masses. It's a little bit derisive, but he's also saying that it's like a way for people to deal with the world, a way for people to like find meaning in it. That's just kind of why he uses that turn of phrase, I think, is like, it does have a reason for being there, and so you can say, hey, this does something for me. This is something that makes my life more fulfilling, has more meaning, what have you. I understand it comes from a materialist source. That's fine. I get that process, but like, it's something that helps me make sense of my day-to-day life. And again, I think that kind of does necessitate a little bit of like, oh yeah, that one part, I get why we say it, but I'm not focused on it. But hey, you may be listening and saying, nah, actually, here's how you square that circle. That's fine. But
we do that all the time, especially like on the shows. Like we take what we want from different like, bios and theories and whatever. And like, yeah, I like this part, don't like this part. Like, that's fine. I think you can do that with religion if that's your jam.
Yeah. And that's also being a good materialist, is learning from all of these different traditions or historical examples. One of the stupider things that, liberal idealists and everything like to do is sanctify somebody, They say, oh, here are all the good things and the perfect things that this person did because they are good and perfect and we should emulate them in every way, make them into a hero, or vilify them. And that's one thing I think we try to do on the show well, and is rooted in that dialectic thing, is that within the same person, you'll have good actions and bad actions. You'll have good aspects, bad aspects. And you have to understand that those both exist with intention with each other. There's a relationship between them. Sometimes there's causal relations too. But like, you have to be able to extract not just the good aspects to emulate, but also look at the bad parts and figure out, like, this wasn't just because they were a jackass. This is why they did that. Here's how to avoid it. Learn from it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, speaking from the atheist point of view, or agnostic, or whatever the fuck I am these days.
Yeah.
I think it is, for me, like, I often struggle, I think, to relate to, like, particularly religious people, because for me that is a signifier of, like, I got to run some questions about you first. Like, I have to make sure that you're cool.
So you're like saying you're more experienced with perhaps more culturally conservative.
Yes, more
attitudes.
Discriminatory practices, and that's how I would hope we would, not necessarily like in that skeptical way, but like I think, if we're talking future time commune, I think absolutely you can have religion, like, that's fucking fine. Like, we're not going to be like a forcibly atheist society, I hope. But I think it does have to come with some caveats of, like, hey, you can't do these things. Like, you had to be on board. Like, you can't fucking discriminate against people. Like, you can't hurt other people in your personal beliefs. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that we would have to set out, like you said, in those future projects is, I don't know. I mean, your beliefs, technically you can believe whatever you want, but your actions in the public sphere have to be, we're just going to straight up outlaw some stuff. And like, I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot because, I don't know, just thinking about kind of, I hate the word, but cancel culture of, like, people getting really upset about it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, first off, like we've talked about, no one actually gets canceled. You can just come back and make, like, way more money because now you're controversial. Yeah. I don't feel bad for these people at all. They're rich. They're doing fine. But secondly, it's like you have to play by some rules to live in society. Like, if you don't do that, they have a right to get mad and respond and kick you out. Like, that's how any society works. That's definitely how I would want our future society to work. Is like, hey, like, this guy fucking sucks. Like, can we not? Yeah. So, like, I think that's very reasonable. And I think it's really frustrating when it turns into this whole, fucking free speech nonsense. Because, like, yeah, you have free speech, but there's also rules with that too, dummies. Yeah, and there's degrees within that. Like, sure, we do need to wrestle with the notion of where lines are drawn as far as what's acceptable to be offensive, to be edgy, or telling jokes, or taking political stances that aren't popular. But where is that line drawn? We would argue that you have to take into account not just, oh, can I say this, but, like, who is actually potentially hurt by this, and whether there's racism involved or what have you, any sort of discriminatory things like that. But I think it's a really childish approach to just saying, no, I should be able to do whatever I want. With no consequences. Those are consequences. You should have learned about those when you were, like, 3. Yeah, that's the thing, is people want to be able to kind of just do whatever, stomp their feet and loudly yell something and not have to pay a price for that. All right, that was a weird tangent, but that's what this show is for. I was going to add one more thing in about the reconciling beliefs. At the end of the day, they're beliefs. So I think you can be as flexible as you want with them because nobody can prove anything on them because they're beliefs. True. But that's the thing, is if you want to be, like, by the book, it's like, oh, I want to follow the authority of this particular church or faith or what have you, you're going to have to play by their rules. I don't think that communism is as strict about that unless you want to be. There are some groups that are like, no, you got to, but Most of us are chill.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of, I guess that's kind of a story beat people reference a lot, is like the USSR being anti-religion. But I think that gets taken out of context is the thing. Whereas like, yeah, the church was like a huge landowner and like was really shitty. So like I would be anti that as well.
Right. It was hand in hand with the czarist autocracy. I mean, it was an element of the regime. Yeah. Then when the Civil War happens, they're with the, helping the White Army and everything.
But I guess what I'm saying is like that's taken out of context. And I think with religion today, that also has a context, which is what I was talking about earlier. It's like, that's why I got to ask questions. And that's why I have to be like self-protective, because there is a context around it, given today's conversations. Like, ooh, they're fucking coming for me and people like me.
Yeah. And then there's, again, a broad spectrum in that, like different real established like churches and stuff have way different, and I'm talking even within Christianity, they have way different interpretations of that, Place we go to, they're super chill, like very liberal. Half the time they're talking about like, helping the poor and all, that's what they like to focus on. They're very accepting and all that. But yeah, down the road you can find, very homophobic, transphobic places. For
sure. It is a thing. All right. Thanks for sending that question in. We don't normally do questions here, but this is an ad hoc episode, so we just threw it in the pot.
Bonus.
All right, keep sending them in, though, because eventually we'll do another Q&A, and we'll get to a bunch of them at once.
Yeah.
All right, next, let's talk about the thing that's all over the internet besides Kanye, and that is the fucking strikebreakers we have within DSA.
Oh, yeah.
Should we throw the whole man out?
So how did they vote? Because I just glanced at this, but I didn't investigate it at all.
Only one member. Let me see who it was. I think I remember, but I don't want to misrepresent. Let me go. Oh, sorry. Our friend from DSA just shared a very cute picture of a fat beaver. I'm going to like that. All right. Shout out to Ian and this beaver. Okay. All but one of the squad voted voted to break the rail strike.
How many people did they let vote against it? 80 to 15.
15. Cool. Who was the one good one? I want to say it was, what's her name? Rashida Tlaib. That's who it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go Rashida Tlaib. Let's see. Who all did they let vote against it? Burr of North Carolina did not vote. That's something.
No thanks. I'm good.
Is that Susan Collins of Maine voted no?
Wow.
Tom Cotton. Comrade really? Cotton from Arizona voted no.
Why? How?
Comrade Ted Cruz.
Isn't that the racist guy?
I'm sure Tom Cotton's not racist, sure.
Doesn't he like write crazy shit in the New York Times?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I've heard his name.
They'll sometimes give him his own little Cotton Says column there, and he'll get to say something.
Something nuts.
I had heard about this, that Cruz voted against it.
Interesting.
And Bernie, of course, voted against it. He said, he apparently joked on the Senate floor, "I always knew you were a socialist," to Ted Cruz.
That's great. Wow.
Gillibrand, Hagerty, Heinrich. I don't even know who that is. Oh, no. Heinrich voted,
some real C-listers.
John Hickenlooper.
Really? That guy? That's the guy that... Well, hold on. Let me see.
He's the guy that mainlines fracking fluids.
Every now and then I'll just turn to Kyle and name an old candidate for president and be like, remember this guy?
Yeah.
Remember when that was a name you used to have to know?
Yeah. Who was that guy? I was trying to think of the Washington governor, maybe? The guy with the glasses.
Something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Kind of nerd guy. Anyway. You don't need it in your brain anymore. It's fine. You can throw it out.
Elizabeth Warren voted no. A random smattering of Republicans for some reason. Like
Weird.
Marco Rubio. I don't know why.
What are y'all doing there?
Maybe they were just because Brandon wanted to do it, so they voted against it,
Maybe.
They're just like, we'll show him. Rand Paul voted present. Just wanted everyone to know he was there.
Hey, I was here, guys.
I showed up. So the squad. Oh, and that was just the senators. For some reason, that's what the story I was looking at.
Yeah. So the headlines were, I mean, on my circles, I'm sure the other headlines were some bullshit. These were DSA members who voted to break a strike, except for one. So, like, I don't think they can be DSA members anymore, in my opinion. And it has a lot of folks, like, seriously taking another look at that. Like, do we need this machine anymore? Like, is it doing what we want it to do? Like, what does that mean, I guess? Like, we can't, like, that's a very black and white failure, in my opinion. Like, they should be, like, I don't know if this is a thing in DSA because I'm not well informed. They should take away their membership. We should just be like, we no longer endorse these people. Like, they're out. Like,
yeah,
kick them
that's what would have to happen. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to run a political organization, you have to be able to say what it means to, at the very least, for your elected members, you know, people who hold office and have your endorsement. That's a very weak form of it, but still, you know, your endorsement means you agree with what they're doing for the most part. And this is a big, I don't know, this is too much to.
Yeah. Let's give some background on this for folks who don't know what this rail strike is about.
Okay. Yeah.
Slasher, refresher for me.
All right. What do you know already?
I know that the rail unions, I think plural, were trying to strike. I think they just wanted like fucking like 7 days sick leave or something, like pretty not that big of a deal. And like this means they get 0 days off. Like that is what this results in, which is insane. And it was very much framed as like, this is us saving the economy and not like, this is us like fucking torturing workers. Because like the rails are so vital, like we can't possibly do this. I'm like, really? Like, what the fuck are you doing? If they're so vital, you should like pay them and like take care of them.
Yeah. The rail unions are trying to negotiate a better deal with the railroad companies. And this has been going on for months. I think we've talked about this a couple of times on the show.
I think so, yeah.
They were going back and forth and saying like, no, the crux of the railroad company said, we're going to pay you more money, but we're not going to give you like the paid sick time policy. Like that was what they're holding firm on. And some of the unions, several of them said, yeah, this is fine. We'll go with it. You know, they held votes basically and their membership was like, okay. Some of them, their leadership agreed to it, but then the vote failed. The members were like, no, that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck.
They voted it down. And so by this point, when enough of or maybe any of them, I think it may have been like any of them could say no and it would tank the whole thing. But when they got to that point, then it's like, okay, well, now we have a deadline. If we can't figure something out by that deadline, you know, the rails are going to be shut down, basically. It's going to be a strike. The unions aren't going to go. The workers aren't going to show up, and we're going to shut the shit down.
Wait, so the ones that were threatening to do that, was that everybody or just some unions?
Just some of the unions. I don't know if the other ones would have said, fine, we won't work too, or if they would have broken ranks or what. I don't know how that would have shaken out. But somewhere along the way, the president put together maybe a commission or some sort of a group that looked at it and said, hey, here's what we think. Here's a recommendation. Here's what we think a fair deal would be. And they like put that proposal out there. Obviously, you know, they didn't go, neither side went for it, but that's what they imposed when they did this vote. And it's the exact same thing they did back in the 90s. In the 90s, there was a rail, you know, would-be strike. A strike that was threatened because of this same exact disagreement.
Yep.
And it was the same thing. The very next day, Congress passed a bill to force them to take an agreement, and the President Bush at the time signed it into law. The next day.
I don't. How is that even legal that you can just be like, no, you can't strike? Like, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, and there's stuff beyond that too. So that's just the provision of there's a particular law or something that says basically that they can do that, that they can impose those agreements. There's measures beyond that, I think, if they for some reason were like, no, the federal government has huge powers to essentially nationalize within reason, whatever they want, as long as they
Wow.
classify it for like national defense, national security, production act. And they did some of this with COVID, not a lot, but they did a little bit, where they could basically say, hey, we're going to, put National Guard resources on this shit and make the Army run this thing for a while. Rail, definitely. They could easily do that if they wanted to. But that's the thing is, any strike can be illegal if you can break it.
Yeah. Ugh.
But
hate that.
The flip side of that is any strike can be made legal after the fact if you win.
If you win it. That's true. That's very true.
So I don't know what the rail. Do you know what the rail unions are gonna do now that this has been?
I do not know.
The law, by the way, is called the Railway Labor Act, which was passed back in 1926.
Cool. Normal. A good law. Ugh.
It'd be quite a big ask for these guys to go on strike anyway. I mean, it would be illegal. It's not like that hasn't happened before. Obviously, all the old strikes were illegal, and we got labor unions out of those. But I mean, in more modern-ish times, still before our birth, so before the births of a lot of you guys. In 1981, there was the big wildcat strike of the air traffic controllers, PATCO, I think it was called, in Reagan's time. And they had been ordered to go back to work, basically, same thing, and they went on strike anyway. But since this was like a federal government thing, the air traffic control, Reagan just had them all fired. This was like 11,000 workers, and declared a lifetime ban on them after that.
What the fuck? They didn't have Breaking Bad back then, but you could still figure out that you need your air traffic controllers to be well rested.
Yeah. But they just, boom, he destroyed that, and that was a big strike-breaking kind of watershed of the decline of unions and everything. It had already been declining, but...
Yeah, that did not help.
This is why we need to be building organizational capacity for the left. If we had a strong segment of the railway workers unions radicalized, then we could start to see some more militant action here. Some more, hey, fuck you, we're not going to take this. But when the crisis happens, when we end up in these spots and we haven't done any of that work, it's hard for us to then say, hey guys, can you please risk it all? They don't have any of the framework built up for that to make sense to them. Yeah,
and support within their ranks, knowing that all however many of these unions are going to stand by each other, and then support among the general public too, because the media guys, if you want an example of some fucking decoding media, the language around the stories about this strike outside of leftist publications were just insane stuff. That's a fucking case study. We're going to
avert disaster and everything else.
We're saving the economy,
right? And they both the poor, sad Democrats and Republicans, walking around with their shoulders slumped and their eyes.
I hate doing this.
1,000-yard stares, all of them, and they're just like, oh, we just had to do this. It's so sad. I'm as pro-union as the next person, but...
Yeah. Saving the economy, I would ask, who is the economy? Or do these rail workers don't count as the economy, apparently? Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be a hidden part of the economy, the sub-economy. This is like fast food workers or anyone else, even though, pay scale-wise, these guys do make more, but they make more by being squeezed, much the same way as, education is run on the backs of free teacher labor put in outside of contract hours by guilt or whatever else, of just... I put in extra time like that, but mainly it's to A, avoid traffic, and B, to make my life in the classroom easier. It's I'll put in an extra hour of prep so I don't have to deal with stuff in class as much. Or nurses, notoriously overworked. There's lots of little kind of crevices in the economy that rely on everything's exploitation, but that rely on not hyper exploitation in the imperialist sense. That's a whole extra degree of exploitation, but we're still like
still zoomed in here, but
still there's this extra misery that is kind of always kept behind some sort of a veil, and it only sometimes comes to the fore.
Totally. If you want to talk about like immigrant workers too, like that's another level underneath that of like, those are unseen workers that get treated like shit, and that's another part of the system that is reliant upon them.
Yeah. So when they're saying, oh, we're saving the economy, what they're saying is like, we're saving our profits, our ability to keep this running on the backs of those people, instead of using our margins, using like the money that we could. These guys are making billions in profits, and they're dodging millions of dollars of taxes. They have the money to do this, to remove this onerous, and start paying people fair wages and everything like that. But they're not going to, or they're fiercely fighting it, because they have to stay in competition. Like it's that old competitive drive. It's not that they are being jackasses, but it's sort of a mechanism of capitalism, is that they have to stay like alive in the cutthroat world that it is.
And unless we have a way to, basically scare all the companies the same amount by saying, we'll do this to you too. Like they have no way to correct course, I guess.
Right. They're doomed to drive themselves off that cliff over time.
Actually, there's another strike going on right now I want to talk about. It's the HarperCollins strike. I actually signed a little petition thing for it, just a letter of solidarity, basically agreeing like I'm not going to pitch any work to them until they get their shit together, because so for those of you who don't know about the publishing world, editors are paid shit. Agents are usually like, you get it by contract, which is very unstable in itself and can be a problem. In particular, like publishing workers, whether you're a book designer, editor, anyone on that team, your starting salaries are in like the $30K region, which is if you live in New York, you literally can't.
Yeah.
So what happens is these positions are taken by rich people who can afford to get subsidized by their parents and, live in their aunt's condo for free or whatever it is. Like you end up creating a whole swath of industry built for mostly white rich people.
Yeah.
And that's why we've seen such a huge issue with diversity in publishing. That's why they're so bad at it. They don't know how. They're all the same kinds of people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me see if I can find their current status. This is from 5 days ago. Let's see. So now literary agents are threatening to blacklist HarperCollins as well. So that's good. 150 people. You have 250 entry and mid-level staff members, from publicists to editorial assistants, have been on strike since November 10th.
Wow.
So they do have a strike fund if you want to donate to that. I probably should send them a few bucks. But the HarperCollins is apparently the only major New York publisher with a union at all. So I don't know. It's something that I see results in really quickly, just as someone who's like interested in books a lot. Like I've been reading a lot more lately, and I was trying to find like a nonfiction book that both like my husband and I could enjoy on a road trip, right? And I was like, cool, let me go nonfiction, let me go to popular. Did a couple filters by like audiobook and availability. They were all fucking celebrity memoirs. Everything was either celebrity or self-help. And like, that is honestly where publishing is going if it doesn't get its shit together. Because like the way it works now, it's like a gambling game of like, well, I'm only going to give you an advance if I know you're going to pay out and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to know all the numbers behind it, but like basically like it highly incentivizes having a following already. And like celebrities are going to get first in line every fucking time. Podcasts are kind of the same way now. Like I was trying to look for a new podcast. I'm like, these are all celebrities. Like, I don't fucking care what you think. Like, I want something interesting. And like, I don't know. It's just really frustrating.
It's the same thing with media franchises and stuff of movies and everything is an iteration. Yeah. Because it's already got a fan base built in.
Everything has to be a sure bet.
Yeah, it's because there's less emphasis on creativity and more on just can we get a return on investment, and that's when we did our episode on art and communism. That's one thing you'll get to free yourself from the shackles of. Is who cares if it's good for investors, if it's good for the soul, the creative expression of humans.
Yeah. And those are maybe like two slightly different issues, the strike and then, the way publishing is going. They're connected, I think. I think the overall underlying factors, like, this is a privileged fucking industry. And I think we're starting to see that, like, there's a lot of stories about like nepotism and stuff happening right now too. And so I think people are starting to figure that out of like, oh yeah, like you literally can't break into some industries unless you know a guy.
Yeah, I was going to ask, strike-wise, what are they trying to get? More pay, more benefits?
The union is demanding that pay starts at $50,000 a year, which is still criminally low for New York, guys. I'm just saying. You were living in squalor at that point. Not quite, but yeah, not great. These are pretty small asks, in my opinion.
Yeah, for real. Well, solidarity with them then.
Absolutely. Whatever you rail workers do as well, good luck. I hope you get some fucking days off because, Jesus, that's insane.
Yeah, and if you decide to go on strike, even if it's an illegal strike, we'll point people your way.
Absolutely.
Strike fund wise. I don't even know the legality of that, but it's fine. We'll figure it out if you do it.
Okay. My next topic. I don't know how much you know about this, so maybe I'll start with that.
All right.
What do you know about AI art?
I know that it exists. That there was this one competition where this guy won that was an AI artist.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Whoa, is that good? Is that bad?" And then I've used it in a simple fashion. There's a little bot on Discord called Midjourney Bot where you can enter a prompt for it to do an AI. It gives you like 4 little AI things, and you can
I've seen this.
Upscale it, or you can do anyway. That's my experience with it.
Okay, yeah. So I think pretty normal experience, I would say. Like, I don't know. It's been really interesting seeing like, I guess, how people who are not in the art world interact with it so far, because mostly it's either like, oh, it's memes, or it's like, yeah, I tried it once to make AI portraits right now are really in.
Yeah.
So I saw some of that happening from the people that I thought would maybe know better. So I wanted to talk about it. So I am super simplifying here. Please don't fucking get in my DMs and try to explain algorithms to me, or to you.
That would be more confusing.
That'd be really weird. Machine learning, very complicated, right? But the crux of the issue is that these AI algorithms, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, they take in source material from artists. And it is most of the time, I would say almost all of the time, without their consent.
Okay.
And that is how they are able to generate images. I think it's a little, I'm not trying to be old school here. The photography one, like, yeah, there's credits there too, like if you're doing like more realistic stuff. But oftentimes those are like, I don't know, very public photos of like, yeah, I took images of like, the Prince of Wales or whatever and fucked around with them. But I think what is worrying to me as an artist and worrying to a lot of my artist friends is that these are taking work without consent and smushing them around and changing them and putting out new work from that. And I think there's a lot of discussions right now of like, is this going to replace like portrait commissions or just any kind of commission work or illustrations that we would get, illustration work in general, editorial work? Like, there's a lot of illustration work still out there. And if a company can say, oh, I can just put it into the picture machine and get a machine, they're going to do that. And it's stealing our work is the thing. Like, there was this really famous illustrator who died recently. What was his name? Kim Jong-gi or Gi. I'm sorry if I don't know how to say it. This Korean illustrator. He made this super intricate series of drawings, like just gorgeous stuff. And someone trained an algorithm on his work and was able to mimic it. And that's fucked up. That guy just died, and you're just gonna like steal his work basically to make new work.
Damn, we're all gonna be like Leia in that Star Wars sequels movie.
Exactly. Like, okay, I think that's a great example. It's like, would you want that? Like, isn't that kind of fucked that they did that? That they were able to just move her body around without her consent?
Me, I'm kind of vain. I'd be fine with it. But
I don't know. I just want to be in control of my narrative.
I'd be like, damn, people are
Damn,
still out there hanging out with the Grady in the holodeck, you know,
in the metaverse.
Yeah, I'd be like, that's cool.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, so if one of us dies and we can upload our code, don't upload mine. Yes, upload Grady's.
Yeah. So when we're dead, if you want to revive this show with AI me, that's fine.
That's fine. You got to find new hosts.
Yeah, it'll just
co-host.
Maybe it's just a single project. I don't know. Might not be that good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about this, and I just want folks to know, if you're curious about it, if you've already tried it, I'm not gonna be mad at you about it. That's okay. You're curious. I get it. It's interesting because, like, a lot of the pro arguments I've seen are people saying, like, oh, you know, this is how people responded to photography, or, you know, this is the future of art. Like, just get over it. This is making it more accessible, blah, blah, blah. And I just am like, I think that's sus. Because I don't think you can't, if photography's main debut was taking pictures of other people's art and then selling it, then yeah, I'd be mad at photography too. Don't do that.
It's just, people just go to museums.
Check out photography. And saying it's the future of art, like, I do think it's interesting. I'm not trying to be like a Luddite or anything in the negative sense. But I am a Luddite in the sense of, like, art is labor, and, like, you can't just steal it, and you can't just cut us out.
Yeah, I was going to try to clarify.
Yeah.
So when the companies are, you know, you're saying, oh, the company can just put it in the AI machine. Do they have, like, really good ones that can get rid of, like,
the weird extra fingers and shit?
Yeah, or the swirly eye, or, you know, how they have kind of defects on them?
I don't know. Like, I've seen some pretty good ones now, like, especially the portraits, because that's pretty simple. Those are pretty good. And I could totally see someone using that for a portrait commission or for an author photo or whatever.
And they're good at, like, doing a style of somebody, like something style of whoever.
Yeah, that's literally how some of these are generated. Someone will just say, like, they'll paste a name in their style so-and-so.
That's kind of cool. Okay.
It's kind of cool.
Okay, here's what is kind of cool, is because corporation doing it, fuck them, they suck. They're selling it. Mm-hmm. But what about, like, fair use of, like, I could make a cool D&D character portrait for free at my game that I'm not selling, but I am kind of stealing it because I'm just not paying for it. But it's not like I'm then bootlegging it and selling it to other people is what I mean. I mean, it's still not good, is what you're saying?
I think it's still not good. I mean, I don't love it because you could make the argument like, okay, like people do that already.
It's
though,
like
with
pirating
like Pinterest.
Movies.
Or, I was going to say, like, you can still, like, find an image of someone that looks kind of like your character and be like, yeah, this is close enough.
Oh, that's what I do all the time, every time.
Yeah, that's what you would, like, currently do, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, I've heard arguments against that, and I'm like, dude, if it's just, like, for your fucking home game, like, I don't care about that much. Mm-hmm. I think with AI, I think it's like you are feeding into this system. I worry about feeding it more information, I guess.
So you're saying you're kind of taking part in training it.
I think you might be. I'm not sure.
Training it to make a store where it is bootlegging people's art in the future.
I think so. I'm not like super clear on it. I don't super care to be, I guess, but it still feels a little icky to me. I don't know. And it, especially like when it comes to like the face portraits that everyone's doing, everyone's uploading pictures of themselves and putting in the big AI machine. And I'm like, guys, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we've watched enough sci-fi movies where we know not to do that.
Are you talking about the one that like can make you a Disney character or that sort of thing?
It's called something with an L. What's it called? Lenza is the one that's going around right now.
Lenza.
Not quite Disney. It's more like painterly or kind of anime inspired a little bit. But yeah, that one I'm like, ooh, maybe we don't give the machine more faces to feed on.
Yeah, it's not like a great idea, but then again, you're a drop of water in the ocean compared to how many people are doing it.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah, that's
they
true.
had that aging one where you could see yourself
Oh
age.
yeah,
That
forgot about that.
that was the FBI and all of them
They're
teaming up
so
to
pumped about it.
yeah, because now they can like age and de-age fugitive pictures and stuff. So when we all go underground and hiding from the fascist government, they'll be
They'll
able
have our
to.
number.
Yeah, they'll catch us 15 years later based on that shit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. And like in terms of privacy, yeah, we're already pretty fucked here. Like you got a computer in your phone that knows where you are all the time, unless you really are diligent.
But it doesn't. Yeah, I guess it doesn't mean that you should just do more.
Yeah, I think that's where I come down to it. Like, it is really at this point just like trying to stop the floodgates of like, yeah, I've got certain lines. Like, I would like to not, let an Alexa in my home, or, I'm not going to sign up for like an app that tracks my driving. Like, there's certain things that I'm just going to not do.
I don't do the app that tracks my driving because I drive too recklessly. But
You definitely shouldn't then.
but I can say that it's because I don't like surveillance.
But I don't know. So I guess I just wanted to complain about AI stuff because I think it's shady, and I think it's interesting because like people will say like, oh, this is making, like I've heard that argument, this is making art more accessible. Like it's like there's a weird joy in taking away the craft of artists in a way, of saying like, well, now anyone can do art. I'm like, bitch, anyone can already do art. You just like need to fucking spend some time on it.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't say that. Like, I'm not doing art. I would just be like, kind of getting the art done instant. I don't know.
No, okay, that's some of these bros, and they're mostly bros, are saying shit like, oh, this is the new way to make art. I'm like, I don't think it counts.
No, it's a cool way to visualize maybe something that I'm already doing, but I'm like taking a shortcut of just imagining it without, because I mean, like everyone has a vivid imagination. Everyone can imagine cool scenes and shit, but it's hard, and that's the beautiful skill of getting it to come out of your fingers or whatever you're creating it with, getting it, realizing it. Anyone can have a dream. That's not it requires imagination is sort of a skill, but like,
I think it is. And some people aren't good at it for sure.
yeah, I have that. I don't have the skill to like, I haven't worked on the skill to like bring it into being. And so it's like, most of us just have to exist in that frustrating sort of area of like, I can't, or I have, like you said, I haven't put in the work to bring that into being. You're just taking a shortcut with this stuff. You're not actually doing it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what people are trying to claim, is that this is a new way of making art and this is the future of art and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. Like, I just don't.
I think it's a different thing. And I think it would be less fraught, less of something you would hate which is most things really, if we were in the commune. Because like then no one's really getting ripped off.
Yes.
It's like it would be a different category of things. It's like, oh, some people are really good at like melding all of everyone's work together and making something we didn't think of, sure. And then they're melding. They're not stealing anymore. They're, doing a mosaic almost.
I don't know. I think so that's kind of interesting because like I would still like want credit. Like I'm still not comfortable with someone taking my work and like fucking with it to that degree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never had someone, please nobody do this. I will fucking end you if you take my art and do something with it.
No, so what it would be, right? So they'd produce this cool something based off of so many different things. And then the side banner would be probably in very small.
Credit.
Yeah, probably in very small font because it takes from so many sources. It's like this % from so-and-so. And maybe it even breaks down the elements of what, it'd give you the readout on the side. That'd be kind of cool.
Like I could vibe with that. Like if it was more like almost like collage of like, yeah, I took a bunch of things and like artists talk to each other all the time. Like that's very common. But like I think what happens with a lot of these is like they literally are typing like style of so-and-so and like, yeah, that's bad. You can't just do that. Like you should have hired so-and-so. And like I will say like big firms do this on a different level. They'll say, they'll have a mood board. We this is getting in the weeds here, but very often these big like design firms or companies will say like, oh, we want to look like this, and they put so-and-so on the mood board. Then they proceed to not hire so-and-so and get one of their fucking interns to try to copy so-and-so's style.
Oh, that's like the dollar store version of this. Or maybe it's not, it's the opposite.
I mean,
this is the dollar store version of that.
It's a lot of work, but it is. And like, there's definitely conversation we had. Like, that's shitty too. You took work from somebody. You said, I want it to look like that, but I'm not willing to pay for it. Like, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. It sucks because people are getting ripped off. It's the sweat of your brow right now. But if we move to that next stage, it would be mean just to be like, this is mine. And then everyone could come out and say, no, it's not, asshole. It's not yours. It's this person's. But it would just be like a social faux pas versus like stealing in a world where that is taking, material goods away from you.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction. It's like, yeah, this is taking work from people. It's like commission portraits or portrait commissions are huge for the artist community. It's like how a lot of people make their living is doing profile pictures for Twitter, doing animal portraits. I used to do animal portraits. Like, that was a super common way for me to get a little extra cash. And if this goes much further, like, I'm telling you, like, I think magazines are going to start doing this. Like, I think it's going to get nasty. Book covers are probably going to start doing this. Like, illustration is already something that people are not super willing to pay for, and we have to really fight and be super transparent with each other about our rates and stuff, and like try to fight for more money when we can. And if they find a shortcut around that, they fucking will take it. So I'm here to sound the alarm.
Yeah. So if you guys ever organize a illustrators union,
yes,
and go on an illustrator's strike, they're going to break you guys with the AI.
Oh yeah, they absolutely would, or just stock images or something. Like, yeah, they totally will.
Everything will look ugly for a little bit, but they'll get you guys back in line.
You know what? I think the way around that is the Illustrator Union has to be in solidarity with like the design union, the graphic design union, or the UI people, whoever. So that way they can't like get anything done. Like, they'll print it in like fucking black and white and upside down and everything, because like everyone else will not be there to help.
It's just the higher ups, the managers, trying to remember what any of the shit is. They haven't learned any of the programs since 10 years ago.
Exactly. Like, is it JPEG? What do I do? Like, yes.
They're in Paint trying to figure it out.
Exactly. They're going to do an MS Paint edition of like the Washington Post. It's going to be great. So yeah, that's my plan. We get some cross unions going on.
Yeah. I mean, solidarity across the board. That's what you got to do.
Okay. That was my soapbox. I'll put it away.
That was good. I feel like I learned something. I was just a blissfully unaware. Like I said, mainly my experience with that is that Mid-Journey bot thing on there. I think there's one online that I had used at
Dolly?
some point. Yeah, that one.
That one's fun. And like,
that one's kind of cool for memes. I don't know. Like that one where it's like, what you wake up outside the simulation or something, and it's this creepy, like you're in the hospital sort of thing.
Oh God.
Super scary.
That's really scary. Yeah, and like I have liked some of those memes before. Like, I get it. Like, those are kind of funny, but like, I'm very sensitive when it comes to just ripping art. And maybe I should be more sensitive about ripping photos. Like, y'all get at me if that's something I need to be more aware of. Like, I can do that for sure.
I would say photos. I agree with your distinction of public figures. I mean, unless it's very iconic, like the Che Guevara picture or something. It's like, okay, that's a work of photography or something versus just
this is a red carpet photo.
Here's Obama walking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would lean on the side of photography being really cool, if for like the artistic and stuff, for all the composition or what the weird photography terms.
Yes. Insert photography terms here.
Yeah.
I did not take that class because it sounded hard. Okay. The last thing on my list is really small, but have you heard of sumptuary laws?
That sounds vaguely familiar.
I mean, this, once again, shout out to the Black Death lecture series I'm watching. I promise this is not turning into a medieval history show. I just think the Middle Ages are really interesting. Sumptuary laws are basically like, what the example that was given in this lecture series was, because you had so many like bourgeoisie kind of gaining status and power after the first wave of the Black Death, because like less people alive, they were able to take advantage of prices and stuff. You had this big upwardly mobile class happening. And the nobles were like, oh, that sucks. Let's pass laws on what people can wear.
Can't be too fancy or something.
Yeah. So like furs and stuff were like limited to like noble blood and like all this crazy shit. Isn't that hilarious?
Damn. So it was like, oh, the new fur coats just dropped, but you had to like have the access code. You had to be like in the nobles to be able to be let in the store.
Well, I don't know about like how the shopping worked or whatever, but like you could get in trouble for wearing like too expensive, like above your station clothes.
Even if you had a bunch of money.
Even if you had the money to buy it. Like if you weren't a noble, you'd get in trouble.
Oh, okay. You're saying we should bring these back?
No, I just think they're insane. I just think like what a desperate way to try to hold on to your class status.
You guys better, it's like anti-drip laws.
You gotta be ugly.
Yeah, we can't have you out here showing us up. Basically, that's what they're saying, right? Like, you look too cool. You need to look worse than us because we're cooler than you.
Yeah, so apparently they couched it in like religious and moral tones of like, oh, this is too excessive or whatever. But it's like, well, if it's that bad, like, why are you doing it?
Yeah, why are you the only ones allowed to then?
Exactly. But yeah, mostly aimed at the middle classes, a lot at women as well. So yeah, I think it's interesting because like, then like, you know, a few years later when the nobles ran out of money, they're like, oh, actually, we need to marry these people. So you can wear the fur coat because you're my husband now.
Yeah,
it's
you're
cool.
allowed. You're by marriage. Honorary noble. It's interesting. Later they do this, instead of these laws, they just change the accent on people. So the posh people would have a certain way of speaking. And then when people kind of affected it to get airs and be fancier, they would change. They'd be like, oh, all the poors are speaking like this now. Now we're going to change. And so they're linguistic historians anyway. Think there's like, you can kind of trace certain, elements. I've seen this in like British English of like, high received pronunciation versus more casual dialects, and say, oh yeah, basically the rich people were switching this on people.
Yeah, okay. So that happens with so many things, and I find it fascinating. Food, that happens a lot. Like spices and tea and chocolate used to be, extreme status symbols because you had to like fucking get that from across the world. And whenever like poor people started getting access to more spices, the upper class in England was like, oh, actually, we want food to be bland now. That's what's cool.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to get too horny from all those spices. Horny. It was just racism too, right?
It was like, racism. It's saying,
yeah, the hot-blooded Latins consume all that, and they get angry and all this quick-tempered, I don't know, just bullshit.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And plus, we don't want anyone to get too libidinous, so here's a graham cracker.
Yeah, and also, we don't want anyone to think that we're poor.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah. Another one, like a modern one, this has been interesting. So think about like the Kardashians, right? Your favorites.
Yeah. I've got several posters of them.
Uh-huh. So like a lot of articles have been written about their co-opting of Black women's bodies, and like they pretend essentially to be aesthetically Black in a lot of ways. They did a lot of surgeries and all this stuff. And I say aesthetically Black with quotation marks. There's no one way to look Black, obviously.
Yeah,
They are like using, like I think she wore cornrows at one point. Like, okay, yeah, what are you doing?
So you're saying they're appropriating?
Appropriation. That's the word. Thank you. But yeah, so one thing that they've done that got a lot of attention was a lot of like body mods, a lot of surgeries on their butts and boobs to make them bigger. A lot of them have deflated recently. And a popular theory is that as plastic surgery has become more accessible to the middle class, they say, oh, it's not cool anymore. And so they switch back to being thin.
Oh, okay. So
isn't that interesting?
Body modification is also dictated by this sort of...
in a way.
Yeah.
Because I think now we have cultural sumptuary laws that are not enforced.
We should maybe enforce them. They should say that to get a Brazilian butt lift, you have to have this much in stocks, this much. So then we have nothing but
bad.
We have nothing but like thick ass CEOs now.
At least make them hot. If I have to look at them.
They've all got like super perfect lips or whatever.
Yes, they got the lip fillers. They got the cheek fillers. Yes.
That'd be great.
Anyway, that's just about rich people and how they're hilariously always trying to be trendy by being assholes.
By saying, no, you cannot have that much fur. You cannot look that cool. You are too fly.
No furs, no spices, no butt lifts. What kind of world are you living in?
Hey, if your revolution doesn't have cosmetic surgery and fur coats, I don't want to be a part of your revolution.
Come on. I definitely won't be there if y'all don't know how to cook, if you don't use spices. Come on, guys.
Yeah, for real.
Triple the garlic in every recipe. Just, what are you doing?
This is a good cardinal rule, or at least double. I've done this ever since I heard it from you. It's great.
Yeah, just people who write recipes always wuss out on garlic.
Also, if you live with someone, you cook for someone who doesn't like an ingredient or whatever.
Are you just going to put it in?
If they don't like a basic ingredient, I'm not talking something that like stands out in a dish, but if they consider themselves to be a person who is not too fond of like onions or mushrooms or something that like can be very low key, dial it back, but also chop it up really finely when you do use it. Some dishes kind of need it and benefit from like the flavor. This will kind of get rid of the texture so they don't detect it as much, and you can kind of like introduce it to them and make them realize that you do like elements of this. You just don't like a big, huge chunk of onion or something.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle did that to me and jalapeno. Like, he uses it in salad dressings. He'll like, he takes out the seeds, but he just uses just the jalapeno. And it's really good, and I actually like it now. I still don't want to like eat a slice of it or something, but I like it in certain contexts.
Right. There's certain parts of it that you like you said, in a way. It just has to be presented,
Yeah.
Transformed.
Oh, did I tell you I'm a full white person now?
Wow. All right. No. What made you turn to the light side?
Not morally, but
no.
The final 2 acts, I think, that got me. I now like oysters and I now like olives.
Oysters are kind of weird. I kind of like them. They're kind of weird. Olives, they've always been great.
Olives, I was very particular about. I would like them incorporated into things, but I could not just like snack on olives like some people could.
You mean like real ass like Kalamata olives? Type things?
like big old olives, like
or like stuffed olives too.
I don't really fuck with stuffed olives.
Okay.
I don't know if I've had them lately.
You can do like blue cheese. You can do like all sorts of stuff.
I do like blue cheese. Anyway, I'm into olives now.
Like at an olive bar situation.
Yeah, I probably could eat some. It depends on the olive for sure.
Yeah.
I still, there's some that I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. But I'm curious, olive curious.
I love olives. I didn't know olives are such a white person thing though, but that's maybe biased because I like them, so I'm like, well, they're not that white, but
I don't know, maybe they're not. I think they are, but it's just because my husband's family really likes them and they're super white. And then oysters,
like raw oysters or like oysters
raw
Rockefeller?
oysters, because I liked grilled. I liked grilled oysters the whole time. Yeah. Oh, we did a tasting menu thing in Austin. I gotta tell you about that sometime.
Nice. How do you do your raw oysters? Because I know they serve with stuff. It's like you have lemon, you got hot sauce. Different people do it different ways.
Okay, so this is my thing. Is I usually just do like a little bit of lemon and maybe some red wine vinegar. But for me, I usually try the first one by itself just so I get like, what does this need? And then I doctor. But like, if it's by itself, like God, this is getting into some bougie shit, guys. Welcome to the bougie part of the podcast. I really like East Coast oysters, apparently.
All right.
Because we did a flight at one restaurant. Because like our normal restaurant we go to that has oysters, they're all East Coast, and I like them. And then we did a flight at a different restaurant, and I was like, I hate all of these except for this one. And it was the one that was from the East Coast. So,
okay, there you go.
Maine oysters are my favorite, apparently.
So if you don't like oysters, that could be a trick. Maybe you like the other coast.
Try a different coast, try a different region, see it. And then, we went to a nice restaurant this weekend and did like it's called omakase?
Yeah, omakase, yeah.
Yeah. And the first course was an oyster, and it was just like they did all the stuff on top of it for you. It was like crazy yuzu pearls and like, it was just amazing. Like,
wow.
I'm like, that's how I want oysters. Like, can you fix it up for me? Like, you're the fucking chef here. You know what's good.
I really want to do that one day, do a omakase
Yes.
sushi experience. I got, like, Abby's parents basically, like, gave us some money to go toward that just, like, on my last birthday before, and we kept putting it off, but the last birthday I had before the pandemic, and so then for a while I was like, shit, I really shouldn't have put that off.
Well, you should go.
Yeah.
Ours was a hot pot tasting thing.
Okay.
If y'all are in Austin and want to drop some money on a meal, Dip is a fantastic place.
Cool.
But yeah, the sushi one would be fun too. I would totally do that.
Yeah.
All right, that was the bougie, the bougie hour.
Yeah, and it's only bougie right now just because of capitalism. Like,
yeah, everyone could have this.
yeah, we want to have these sorts of good fucking options in our commune in the future. You know, we're not barracks communists here unless like the conditions dictate it. We want like a good ass fucking huge spread of everything.
Fur coat communists.
Yeah.
Well, maybe faux, I guess, so we don't piss off the animal people.
True. Yeah, we don't want.
It is an already existing coat. You can use it, is my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, but just synthetics for like there's no problem with that.
There's no problem. You can make it real soft.
That's our party line.
In case you were wondering, you're about to type a question to us on Twitter. What do you think about fur coats?
All right. Do we have anything else?
No, that was the end of my list.
All right. Do we want to call it there and make it a shorty, or I can bullshit a headline or something?
Oh, do you have a headline?
I was just gonna criticize America. That's something I like to do.
That's my favorite. Let's do that.
Okay. A couple of headlines that I saw today that were annoying to me, one had to do with Iran and one had to do with China. One of them was talking about Iran and like the protests and everything that had happened there. And we mentioned that before in a previous episode and how it seemed pretty fucked up what was going on. They apparently today abolished their morality police. Just got rid of that.
That's good.
Yeah. They said they were going to review the requirement that women cover their heads in public. And basically, yeah, this morality police that was in charge of that was disbanded.
Okay. I'm pro police getting disbanded, so.
Yeah, I think overall it was pretty good. I thought that the Wall Street Journal's this is not the opinion section, it's just the main regular section of it. Their headline was just Iran abolishes morality police, considers changing hijab laws. In the sub thing, in the little sub blurb or whatever, it says, tells you those things and says, a move that analysts say is aimed at peeling away support for protests.
What? Are you sure it's not a move that says the protests were successful?
Right, like in a normal situation, wouldn't we just say that,
Protest
the people's voice has been heard, or like change is coming, or like
demands were met.
Right. Or like
they don't want us to get ideas that protesting works.
This is just a cruel, conniving way of peeling away support for protest. And don't get me wrong, we're talking about how we don't like what the regime's doing. What their government's doing there or whatever, and we do like this change. I'm just saying it's a weird way to phrase it, of like, look at this nefarious country doing what its people demanded.
Well, I think it was more of like protests don't work kind of language of like, oh, they just happen to be doing this.
Yeah, and now these protests are getting undermined by the government doing what they asked them to do.
Instead of saying, hey, this protest worked. Like, did you guys know if you go out in the streets and demand things, the government will just do it? They don't want us to know that.
Yeah, that's, oof. Don't get ideas, like you said. There's also this one in China that I thought was an interesting one from the New York Times. It says, the Chinese dream denied. Harsh measures shake Beijing's social contract. The sub-blurb on that one says, China's society is built on an implicit bargain, giving up freedoms for stability and comfort. But with COVID restrictions, even those have dwindled. But who did that make you think
of? Interesting. No freedoms, huh?
No freedoms, but I just... guys, look in the mirror. Like...
How's your freedom?
Right. Don't we have this same bargain of, look,
You got to follow some rules.
allow these two parties to run everything. Please don't try to get out of that. You can't. All right. Democracy begins and ends at the polling place.
That's it.
You don't have any in that in between. If you go protest, hey, it's not going to work. If you try to introduce some democracy, say, to your job, no, absolutely. That is
no
a tyranny.
striking.
That's an absolute dictatorship. Leave it that way. In exchange, treats. We're going to give you lots of treats. You're going to have anything you need if you can afford it.
If you can afford it. Because we're not going to give you health care.
And that's the bargain. It's great.
It's true. It's true. We are all in a bargain with our governments to varying levels of degrees of success.
Well, that's the thing, too, is like recently, I think we've seen our own American, from our perspective, the American bargain start to fall apart, right?
Yeah.
More, we had especially deep crisis moments and everything in terms of supplies and stuff in the pandemic. But even after that, it really hasn't subsided 100%.
Yeah, I saw a commercial, or maybe it was a local news promo for it was a local news promo for a girl working 2 jobs, and they're fucking glamorizing it. I'm like, why are you trying to sell having 2 jobs? What does it say about your economy that you have to get everyone to want 2 jobs?
Yeah. From the worker standpoint like that, or from just the consumer standpoint of not always having the shit that you want, and everywhere is understaffed because people don't want to pay workers enough. And
guys, I started construction on my deck about two months ago. I don't have a deck because I'm still waiting for wood to come in.
Yeah, supplies too. This is what we used to pillory the old Soviet Union about, is they had to stand in lines at the grocery store, and
I'm standing in line, the wood line.
The shelves were empty, and it's like, man, we have that now, and it's just the same thing as they're talking about in this.
Yeah, cars, how expensive cars are. Yeah.
That's
construction
crazy.
In general, electronics, all that shit is just we've accepted it now of that's going to take a long time. If you have a part broken in an appliance, that's going to take forever.
Mm-hmm. And that's, but the other end of the bargain is still there. We still have to comply. We still have to say, yeah, but America, I don't know, it's the land of opportunity or something. It's great. You're free to, but we still have to
free to work 2 jobs.
Right. Yeah. We still have to pretend that we're getting anything at all out of this arrangement, even though increasingly we're not. And I think it's just funny that this article is the people of China, they have to put up with very harsh restrictions. And of course, Xi Jinping, very authoritarian and terrible.
As if our government is not authoritarian.
No authority. They never use authority here. It's just freedom. It just runs all on liberty.
Totally. We're definitely not persecuting entire groups of people and just
no, that's
not at all.
Other countries do that. And again, that's not to say, there are probably, honestly, if it's literally any government, the Chinese government is probably also doing oppressive things in one way or another.
I'm sure.
To various groups of its people. You don't even have to go fully to the extent of the American media talk about that to say that, some element of that is probably happening. But I just find it interesting that they're now this social contract is breaking down. Now they don't have as many of these things, and maybe it's instability that they're going to go through because of that. It's dude, we're having that here. This is interesting to talk about in another country, but it's why isn't anyone bringing this up here too?
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm thinking about the dispossessed again, because of course I am. But that had a social contract element too of you gotta be cool. It was a very simple one of help the community when you can, have that community mindset. You don't technically have to. We're not going to kill you over it. But there was a social contract hey, if you want to have friends here, you have to not be an asshole.
Yeah. And if you want to ground it back in Marxist terms, one of the things that they talked about in Socialism, Scientific and Utopian by Engels was this, and Marx talked about this in the manifesto too, is eventually the productive forces in society are held back by the system that's in place, by the mode of production, capitalism. Eventually, capitalism is standing in the way of everyone getting what they need.
Ooh, doesn't feel like eventually.
Right? Eventually, like we are killing ourselves, our whole planet, to serve capitalism. Like, that's the reason we're saying, oh, yay, I get to work 2 jobs. Oh, yay, I don't have health care.
I don't have air to breathe.
Yeah. And the reason why is capitalism's keeping you in that situation. There are people who need returns on their investment. And that's why all of this is happening.
And it's set up as these immobile laws, like the strike breaking, like, oh, we had to, And it's like, you didn't, though. Like, you fucking didn't.
Right, but that's the way that language comes from, of the fetters of those modes of production, like locking you in. That's why they say they have to, because to them, they can't see past that.
They're abiding by the system, and it's like, we gotta throw this whole man out.
Yeah, it's got to go if we're ever going to be free from that.
That's true. That's true.
That's all I got.
Well, it was good. A good note to end on.
Yeah, we got to free ourselves or else.
Yep. Okay, next week for real, we are doing movie night. We're watching Pride.
It's a great movie.
Oh, you already watched it. Good for you.
Yeah, you guys should go out and watch it on Amazon Prime is where I watched it. I think that's where it's streaming. But you could,
That's a suggestion, not a requirement.
Right. You can probably find it in other ways. Mm-hmm. Just give credit to the filmmakers if you do that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll talk to y'all next week.
All right. See you then.
Bye. Hey there, comrades. Just jumping in to remind you of all of our social media. We are on Twitter at teachcommunism, Instagram at teachmecommunism. You can shoot us an email. That's teachmecommunism@gmail.com. Any of those places are good to send us an episode suggestion or a question, anything you think would be useful feedback for us, or just your admiration. If you want to admire us in a public manner, and you should, you can go to Apple Podcasts to give us a review. It is the best way to help people find the show. Love when people rate and review us. Please do both. We are also on YouTube, if that's how you prefer to listen to podcasts, or if you know someone that's the only way they'll listen to podcasts, send them to our page. And we have a Patreon. For $5 a month, you get access to our notes for each week's episode, including the backlog of notes, which is a very handy resource for up-and-coming commies. And at the end of the year, all of the funds from Patreon will be given to local mutual aid in the DFW area. So, ain't going to line our pockets. Finally, we have merch. Check us out at TeePublic. You can find shirts and I believe also stickers and magnets and all kinds of fun stuff with catchphrases from the show or episode art, stuff like that. The link to that store is in the show notes, so check that out. Okay, that's all the internet. Join us next time for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session. Bye, y'all.